Shalom, shalom, Israel, shalom. His brother Raya, I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, by Hashem Mashiach, Malak Yahushua. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers that go out there and labor on the highways and byways, making their body living sacrifice. In the rain, the tumults, the demons, the uprises, the uproars, they're out there standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers that are not out there as of yet, but they're building themselves up by reading, praying, fasting, doing the work of the Lord. You understand, taking notes, putting themselves in a position to shake the hand to wake up the hopeful elect. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf in this thing that actually sincerely reverence their husbands, being teachers of good things to the children at home, being quiet, shamefaced, submissive, loving, steadfast, cooking, sewing, cleaning, doing all of the righteous acts of our foremothers. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf that are not married as of yet, but remaining shamefaced on fire for the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty children that are on fire for the Lord, abstaining from all lust, concupiscence, and peer pressure. And last but not least, another strong shalom to the whole entire nation, remaining on fire, steadfast, keeping the feast days, casting away wickedness, and standing up for the Lord against the evildoers, man. Continuously going into the prophecies, the knowledge, the understanding, the parables, and making their body living sacrifice in the last days. Now, there's going to be a quick breakdown right through the spirit, right on ancient warfare. Nebuchadnezzar, you understand, America, the battle of Carchemish, right? We have to go inside of this history because it relates to what's going on today, man. Now I'm gonna share my screen, right, and let me know if you can see it. Right, we jumping straight into it through the spirit. But before we get into it, I'm gonna get this quick precept. Let's go to the book. Let's go to Sirach. Let's go to the mighty book of Sirach. Right, it's the mighty book of Sirach, chapter 13. Right, so like it, bear with me. Check this out. This is the book of Sirach, right? Chapter 13 and verse 26. A cheerful countenance is a token of a heart that is in prosperity, and the finding out of parables is a wearisome labor of the mind. So the Lord said to find out parables is a wearisome of the mind, meaning men of the Lord in the last days, they got to be diving into these parables. They got to be understanding who these feathers are. They got to be diving into who these dragons are. They got to be going to the ancient battles of old, what was going on, these different kings. And they have to understand that everything written aforetime was for our learning's sake. And also was double to that which is. So a man of the Lord, he's going to be digging out the parables in the last days, go inside of the prophecies. Now with prophecy, right? Let me get the book of Job, chapter 11. Right? It's the book, the mighty book of Job, right? Chapter 11 and verse number 6. It says, and that he would shew thee the secrets of wisdom, that they are double to that which is. So you may read something in the scriptures, but it has a whole deeper meaning, or has a twofold meaning, rather. It may mean something on a mainfold level, but then you get down to prophecy on a prophetic level, and it's saying something totally different. It says, know therefore that God exacteth of thee less than thine iniquity deserveth. So you may want ancient parables and breakdowns, but it's all determined off of your spirit and how you move, man. Because the Heavenly Father is not going to give wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to a man that is not occupied in prophecy. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, right? The 46th chapter. Let's dive into it. This Jeremiah chapter 46 and verse number 1. It says, the word of the Lord which came unto Jeremiah the prophet against the Gentiles, against Egypt. So you have an ancient Egypt that literally used to rule, man. And this Egypt was very strong. You understand? You read about that in the book of Song of Solomon. Let me get this quick precept. Now, we look at the heathens. We understand they're heathens. We understand that they're low and they're less than us. We understand that their latter end is going to be destruction. But when the Most High had his hand to build up these nations and to build up their countries and cities, you understand? And they were mighty, man. This is the book of Song of Solomon, chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse number 9. I have compared thee, O my love, to a company of horses and Pharaoh's chariots. So Pharaoh had a vast army, I mean, a humongous army. When you look at the so-called white man's army right now, well, let me get this. The so-called white man has a huge army, man, right? And you have to look at this twofold level. How was Pharaoh's army looking, man? How many horses and chariots and men and whips and scourges and tongs and swords did he have, man? Look at the so-called white man. He has tanks, helicopters, missiles, drones, right? He has men with helmets on, infrared goggles and lights, right? All type of different task force, whether it be the Navy, you understand? Could be jumping into SWAT, jumping into special forces. So Pharaoh had an army the same way, man. We have to understand how strong this army actually was when the Most High was with it, how it raised up over the earth. Going back to the book of Jeremiah, it says against Egypt, against the armies of Pharaoh Necho, right? Pharaoh Necho of Egypt, which was by the river Euphrates and Carchemish. So Carchemish is an actual location, and Carchemish was an ancient war. So you may ask somebody or may come against somebody that says the Bible isn't real. Guess what? You can go inside of the scriptures and show them the ancient battle of Carchemish. Let us go into the battle of Carchemish. Carchemish is a location. Now, with this being said, you have the ancient battle of Opis that's in the scriptures. You have the Greek Syrian wars. You got all of these different wars that are ancient wars that are in the scriptures, man. And when you go inside of these wars, the Lord can show you, or for lack of a better term, you understand geography and history will teach you these things, man. Now, in the Babylonian Empire, right? Pull this up real fast. The Neo-Babylonian Empire is also known as the Second Babylonian Empire, right? It's the Chaldean Empire, which are the so-called Africans, which was the last of the Mesopotamian empires ruled by monarchs. You have monarchy governments, and then you have governments that are not monarchy. Now, monarchy governments are different. You may have one ruler that's the head, and whatever he says goes. Now, with America, as it trickles down, you have governments, you have judicial branch, you have senators, vice presidents. It's confusion. In the ancient world, it was just Nebuchadnezzar. Nobody stayed Nebuchadnezzar's hand. Nobody's going to say, well, I think not Nebuchadnezzar, and come against him on his throne and throw something away, man. So, and it goes to show you how that ancient statue from the head, you understand, to the torso and arms, to the legs, to the feet, you understand, is representation of Babylon. You understand the Perso-Medo Empire, the Greek Empire, and the Roman Empire, going all the way down. Now, with this monarchy government, you had Nebuchadnezzar's father, Nabopolassar, that reigned from 626 to around 605 BC. Now, from 605 BC is when Nebuchadnezzar came into play. Nebuchadnezzar II. Now, when, like I said, you can go inside, you can read about Pharaoh Necho, you could read about Alexander the Great, you could read about Nebuchadnezzar, you could read about Cleopatra, you could read about all of these ancient men that are actually in history, man. Can't nobody come up and tell you that the Bible isn't real. It says, let me get into it. So you have different wars of the Babylonian Empire. Now, one of the first wars was revolt of Babylon. You have to know this history because somebody could come against you and they'll be a scholar. Now, every scholar doesn't have the blood of Yahushua in them, huh? It doesn't come from the loins of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You have Edomite scholars. You have Ishmaelite scholars. You have Moab scholars, man. And they'll come against you with your history and confound you, man. All because we read things a lot in the spirit and we don't read them in the context. It's very important to know contextual history to be able to combat men that have no understanding. And like Paul said, I am set for the defense of the gospel, to chop down strongholds, further showing you that the history that's in the Bible links up with history today. So you have the revolt of Babylon, which is around 626 BC, which was defending the Neo-Syrian Empire, right, which ruled Babylon for over a century. You can read about this in the book of Judith. Now, also in the wars of Babylon, you also have the fall of Nineveh. That's in the scriptures. The fall of Nineveh in the book of Nahum, which was actually the fall of Nineveh that led to the destruction of the Neo-Assyrian Empire around 612 BC. You have the siege of Jerusalem. Now everybody knows about that. 2 sieges, read about in 2 Kings 24, right? 2 Kings 25 from 589 BC all the way to around 587 BC. And you can read about that in the Kings, which was around a 30-month siege, going into all of the history. And then you have the Battle of Opis, which you can read about in Isaiah, the 13th chapter, which is around 539 BC. In the Battle of Opis, Isaiah, the 13th chapter, the last military engagement between the Achaemenid Persian Empire and the Neo-Babylonian Empire, where they waged war. But we know that to be twofold. Everything in the scriptures is twofold. But if somebody comes against you and says, well, this already happened, or that didn't happen yet, or what do you say about this, or we're living in today, then we have to go inside of the history, man. Now, in the Battle of Carchemish, let's go to it. Just to pull up some quick geography on a map level. There's Carchemish right here. If you could see this. All right. See if I can get another picture on it. Carchemish, right above the Assyrian Empire. Down is Midigo, Hamath, and Jerusalem. Just in case brothers may or may not know, right, where the Battle of Carchemish took place. Now, the Battle of Carchemish was around 609 BC. It says it right here. Now, with that being said, let's go back to Jeremiah. It says, in Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, smote in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. Now, with that being said, let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 30 and verse 20. So when you linking up these scriptures, you want to stay within the prophets. What I mean by that is you want to stay within Ezekiel, Jeremiah, you want to stay within Daniel. These men actually lived during the Babylonian Empire. Judith, right, around the Neo-Assyrian Empire when Nebuchadnezzar was coming into power. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 30 and verse 20. It's the book of Ezekiel, chapter 30 and verse 20. And it reads, it says, and it came to pass in the 11th year, in the 1st month of the 7th day of the month, that the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. This is Pharaoh Necho. He has broken his arm because his arm was strong. And Pharaoh Necho, when you go inside of the history, he had a mind and a spirit to where as he reigned, he did all this by himself. The same spirit hopped on Nebuchadnezzar when he said, I have conquered all these kingdoms by myself. When the Lord had to chop him down like a damn tree, man. I had him to grow claws, I had him to wander and God knows where for 7 years. Till we understand who rules in the kingdom of men and that he'll give it to whomsoever he please. That's a Mashiach Wamalak, the King Yahushua, man, and his beloved Father. Now, with that being said, it says, and lo, it shall not be bound up to be healed, to put a roll to bind it, to make it strong to hold the sword. And this is twofold, because you have Egypt, which is America today. And once the Lord smites it from lifting up to that mighty arm to breaking it down, it's never going to come into power again. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and I will break his arms. Arm represents strength. Like the Lord said, let me get this quick precept for brothers that may not know. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 17 and 5. Because your arm represents your strength in the scriptures. He said, look, I'm going to break both your arms down, man. Meaning your right and your left arm in all your strength. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse number 5. It says, thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that trusteth in man and maketh flesh his arm. Who made flesh their arm during the battle of Carchemish? The Israelites. They were going off, man, straight up. Now, we can't trust in America. You know what? God has prophesied at destruction. He's prophesied at World War III. He's prophesied at the famine. He's prophesied at the pestilence. You know what that's do? That's wear an army hat, put an army suit on, grab a gun, and be safe with the so-called white man. That's the spirit that the scared took on, cleaving unto Egypt when Nebuchadnezzar II was coming in to besiege and put them in captivity. They thought that making an allegiance in a league with our enemies can strengthen them up. It says, whose heart departed from the Lord. And that's exactly what happened. Our heart departed from the Lord by cleaving, you understand, to Pharaoh Necho. Now, let's go back to it. Matter of fact, let me get another precept on that. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 32, and verse number 1. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 32, and verse number 1. It says, "And it came to pass in the 12th year, in the 11th, Slakia, the 12th month of the first day of the month." And you got to take heed to these years because it's letting you know the different kings that reign, the different times of these different wars, right? And geography, the different places they were, on top of how you could chronologically put these wars in order. It says that the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, "Son of man, take up a lamentation against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say unto him, Thou art like a young lion of the nations," man. Meaning what? He was like the top one. You may have all the different nations, but at that time, Egypt was the strongest. Thou art as a whale in the seas. Now, what does a whale do? He literally roars and rules the sea. You have killer whales, so called to the our understanding, they're the strongest. You know, next to we got Leviathan and Behemoth, but nevertheless they rule the sea. It says, "Thou comest forth with thy rivers, thou troublest the waters with thy feet." The waters represent the nation, meaning Pharaoh, king of Egypt, Pharaoh Necho, he troubled the nations. He ruled them. He beat them down, his strength. The Lord said, "Look, you troubling the nations, man." A Nebuchadnezzar came, took him down, and now he troubled the nations, put them all in captivity and fear. It says, "Thou foulest, Salakia, thou foulest their rivers," right? Because rivers are equivalent to nations. It says, Thus saith the Lord, "I will therefore spread out my net over thee, will the company of many people, and they shall bring thee up into my net." So the Lord has prophesied it to do what? To destroy it. "Then will I leave thee upon the land, and I will cast thee forth upon the open field, and I will cause thee all the fowls of heaven to remain upon thee." And that's spiritual, because you're not having a proper burial, one. And two, he says, "I will have all the fowls of heaven to come and devour you, man, and all the beasts of the field." Meaning everyone's going to turn upon Egypt. Who's Egypt? Egypt is America, man. Yeah, we have an ancient Pharaoh Necho. You have an ancient empire around 605 BC. The battle kicked off. These are physical men, physical empires, and physical battles. But nevertheless, it's all twofold, man. It says, "And I will fill the beast of the whole earth with thee." Meaning everybody's going to come against Egypt. That sounds very similar to everybody coming against America. Because right now, America's federacies are very small. I mean, very small. Now, with that being said, let me go back to it real fast. Let's go back to the book of Jeremiah chapter 46 and verse number 1. It says, "Against Egypt, against the army of Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, which by the river of Euphrates and Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, smote in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah." Now, where did he get smitten? By the river Euphrates. Where are all of the nations going to come up, and what's going to dry up? The river Euphrates. All of this is twofold. Now, why is he being smitten and taken down by the river Euphrates? And this is Egypt. It's all a spirit behind what we read. Now, when it says that Josiah, the king of Judah, reigned during this time, now that's going inside of what was going on. Before we get that, let me get this quick precept in the book of Isaiah, chapter 23. This is Isaiah chapter 23 and verse number 13. It says, "Behold, the land of the Chaldees," that's where Nebuchadnezzar, right? And the Babylonian Empire. "This people was not till the Assyrian founded it." So you may see king of Assyria, Neo-Babylonian Empire, Neo-Syrian Empire. You have to understand that Nebuchadnezzar was called the king of Assyria before he was called the king of Babylon. So when you go inside of the history, the scriptures tell you that, which also links up, like I said, when you go into the history. It says, "Behold, the land of the Chaldeans, this people was not till the Assyrian founded it. For them that dwell in the wilderness, they set up the towers thereof, they raised up the palaces thereof, and he brought it to ruin." So you have to understand that these people were not to the Assyrian founded it. Now let's go to the book of 2 Kings chapter 23. because it talked about King Josiah. Now, King Josiah was also a part of the ancient battle of Carchemish. And like I said, this is a real battle. You can go inside of history. We talk about scholars. Scholars may say, and I'm not talking about scholars in the Bible. A lot of scholars in the world, they may be like, wow, we don't ascribe to the Bible. And then you talk about the battle of Carchemish, and they're going to be right there with you because Nebuchadnezzar was an actual man. And these men actually walked the earth. They will have to acknowledge the Bible, which foretold these events, man. Let's go to 2 Kings chapter 23 and verse 28. Right? Let's get it. And it reads, it says, now the rest of the acts of Josiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles, kings of Judah? And in his days, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates. So it says in one context, it goes against Nebuchadnezzar. And then in another context, it says what? The king of Assyria. So we get in the precepts linking up how we understand how it's being written. It says, and King Josiah went against him, and he slew him at Megiddo. Now, Megiddo is right next to Jerusalem. Let me see if I could get that real fast. He slew him straight up in Megiddo. This is where Megiddo is, right above Jerusalem. Right? For brothers that may not know. Going back to it, it says, and King Josiah went up against him and slew him at Megiddo when he had seen him. And Josiah had no business going to war, straight up. Josiah was one of the only righteous kings. You had Hezekiah, you had Josiah, you had Solomon, you had David. All of these men, like the scriptures say, were defective, man. They did their work and they were righteous. Nevertheless, it says, and his servants carried Salakia, jumping the gun. It says, in his days, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria, right to the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went up against him and slew him at Megiddo when he had seen him. So I want to leave off right here and get the account in 2 Chronicles 35, because it's a little bit more descriptive. Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 35. And I start at verse 20. It says, after all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish by Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. But he sent ambassadors to him, saying, what have I to do with thee, thou king of Judah? So he didn't even want beef. There's no account of him and Pharaoh Necho having any type of problems. But Josiah, it was like he was bloodthirsty. He just wanted war. He wanted to take down the nations. And that just goes to show you, you can't do things presumptuously. You have to wait upon the Lord. A lot of brothers right now, they may want to take down a heathen. They may want to fight. A lot of sisters may want to do God knows what. That's why the Lord said, wait upon me. I say, wait upon the Lord. In the book of Psalms, chapter 27:14. It says, I come not against thee this day, but against the house wherewith I have war. We don't have war with you. For God commanded me to make haste, forbear thee from meddling with God who is with me, that he destroy thee not. So this heathen straight up told him, look, don't mess with me because God is going to kill you. So the Lord could speak through a heathen, man. He spoke through Balaam. He spoke through Cyrus. You understand? He spoke through Pharaoh Necho. And the Lord could speak through a heathen, man. It says, nevertheless, Josiah would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself. He wanted war so bad, he disguised himself in the battle, that he might fight with him, and hearken not unto the words from Necho, from the mouth of God, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot at King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, have me away, for I am sore wounded. So what happened? Josiah got put to flight, and he got put to death because he didn't listen. And that just goes to show you meddling in many matters, whether that be conversation, speech, talking to people you have no business talking to, going places you have no business going, could get you put to death, man. Because the Lord didn't want you to go there in the first place. No matter how mighty you are, who your name is, if you're a king, a prince, a ruler, a princess, whatever the case may be, if it's not of the Lord, you should refrain your feet. No matter how zealous you are on the matter. Right, going back to Jeremiah, just to get the basis of the battle of Carchemish, Nebuchadnezzar, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian, as far as the time, Josiah the king as well. But reading on down, right? It says, order ye the buckler and shield, and draw near to battle. Harness the horses and get up, ye horsemen, and stand forth with your helmets. Furbish the spears and put on the bergantines. Wherefore have I seen them dismayed and turned away back, and their mighty ones are beaten down, and fled a space, and look not back, for fear was round about, saith the Lord. Check this out. Let not the swift flee away, nor the mighty man escape. They shall stumble and fall toward the north by the river Euphrates. So Egypt is going to fall by the north. That's spiritual. What does the north represent? And what does Euphrates represent? In prophecy. Let's get it. Let's go to the book of Zechariah. That's why when you're going through these precepts, and there's nothing wrong with breaking down prophecy and parables, but you want to have read a large amount of the Bible or know a large amount of precepts so that you don't trip at something you think it's saying when it's actually not saying it. The more you study and soak up the precepts, the more you'll think to yourself when you read something, that's linking up with that. Okay, this king is actually mentioned 4 other times right here. You know, with this war, I've read about that in Ezekiel. Right? This is the book of Zechariah, chapter 2, and verse number 6. It says, ho, ho, come forth, flee from the land of the north, saith the Lord. For I have spread you abroad as the 4 winds of the heaven, saith the Lord. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. Who's the daughter of Babylon? America. Where's America at? The north. Where was ancient Babylon at? The north country, man. That's literally prophecy, and that's actually what happened, and that's where the north actually was located. So he's going to fall by the north, by the river Euphrates. And that's exactly where America is going to be taken down at, right? The valley of Jehoshaphat. But nevertheless, reading on, it says, who is that that cometh up as a flood, whose waters as moveth, right, the rivers? So who's moving the waters as the rivers? We just read about it in Ezekiel chapter 32. Pharaoh Necho, man. He was the whale moving all of the damn rivers, all of the fish and locking in, and all hell was breaking loose, man. So a flood is likened unto men. You read about that in the book. Let me get this quick precept. In Psalms chapter 18 and 4. All right, let me get this quick precept. It's the book of Psalms chapter 18 and verse number 4. It says, the sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. So floods, waters, rivers, seas, all of these things are parabolic to men, right? It says Egypt riseth up like a flood. And what does a flood do? It takes you down. Isn't that same flood the Lord said would come and chase the woman? Because a flood is going to chase the woman in Revelation, the 12th chapter. And we know that that flood is America. In ancient Egypt, like I said, when you go into it, and we're going to get it furthermore to further explain it, they would take it down everything. So the Lord had to raise up Nebuchadnezzar, which took down everybody. Now, when you go to Revelation chapter 12, just to get this quick precept on the flood again, it's the book of Revelation chapter 12 and verse 16. I'm going to start at 15. It says, and the serpent cast out of his mouth waters as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. You could be carried away of the flood. It says, Egypt riseth up like a flood, and his waters are moved like the rivers. And he saith, I go up and cover the earth. So who's going up to cover the earth? Whose feet abideth not at home? Who's in Afghanistan, Russia, damn Iraq, the dragons of Arabia? Who's all over the world and said, I will go and I will take it, man? Who's even acting like he left the earth and put his damn flag on the moon, man? He wants to cover and destroy and rule the whole entire earth. I would destroy the city and the inhabitants thereof. So that's Egypt's mind, to destroy everything and rule it. Come up, ye horses, rage ye chariots, let the mighty men come forth. The Ethiopians and Libyans that handle the shield. Now these are other Africans. Now going into what that's going into, before I get that, I want to go back to verse 8 real fast. It says Egypt rises up like a flood, and its waters are moved like the rivers. Right? I'm gonna get this quick precept. Let's go to Jeremiah, right? Chapter 42. So what was going on during this time with the Israelites? The Israelites were trusting in Egypt. They were going off, man. A small remnant of them that did not want to go into captivity. They didn't want judgment. They didn't want pestilence. They didn't want these things to happen to them. What did they do when they knew that their sword was drawing nigh? They clave and they went off. What's happening right now? You got Jake joining the army. Jake getting a poison stick. Jake bowing down. Jake working on the Sabbath day. And these are the same things from old, man. This place is going down. They're strengthening up their armies just like ancient Egypt did before. Now, when you read about the Libyans, the Ethiopians, all of these different nations, they made a confederacy to help Egypt fight against Nebuchadnezzar. The same way, how small was ancient Egypt's league, man? Very small to go against Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, America's league is very small. Everyone's going to turn against him, and his confederates and his league that he has is going to be destroyed and brought to naught, just like ancient Egypt was. Now, when you go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 42, and verse 13, right, it says, "But if ye say, we will not dwell in this land, neither obey the voice of the Lord your God," and that's Jake for you, saying, "No, but we will go into the land of Egypt, where we shall see no war, nor hear the sound of trumpet, nor have hunger of bread, and there will we dwell." So men said, look, I'm going to run from Nebuchadnezzar. I'm not trying to get taken down and go into slavery. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cleave to Egypt, man. I'm going to join forces with Egypt. Now, when you read the book, right, let me get this quick precept, right, in the book of Baruch. It's saying the same exact thing. Let's go to Baruch. Let's go to Baruch, first chapter. It's Baruch, first chapter, 1 and 1. It says, "And these are the words of the book which Baruch, the son of Nerazah, the son," let me just jump down. Verse 2, "In the 5th year, in the 7th day of the month, what time as the Chaldeans took Jerusalem," we just read about it, "and burnt it with fire," the siege. "And Baruch did read the words of this book in the hearing of Jonachus, the son of Joachim, king of Judah, in the ears of all the people that came to hear the book," right after Josiah died. "And in the hearing of the nobles," right, it says, "of the king's son, in the hearing of the elders, and of all the people, from the lowest unto the highest, even of all them that dwell at Babylon by the river Su. Thereupon they wept, fasted, and prayed before God." Now, when you jump down, I'm going to jump down to verse number 9. "After that, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, carried away Joconigus and his princes and his captives and the mighty men and of the people in the land of Jerusalem, and brought them unto Babylon. And they said, Behold, we have sent you money to buy and burnt offerings and sin offerings and incense to prepare you manna and offer up the altar of the Lord our God, and pray for the life of Nebuchadnezzar." So he's telling you straight up to pray for the life of Nebuchadnezzar. That doesn't mean we worship Nebuchadnezzar. Don't mean you bow down and physically pray. Pray for the life of Nebuchadnezzar, meaning want the word of the Most High to prosper. Like ancient terms are in the Bible. They say, "I pray thee, give me a cup of water, I pray thee." That doesn't mean you saying, "Oh Lord, can I please get this cup of water? Can this brother please give me a cup of water?" And then you say it in the Lord's name, and then you have a cup of water. No, "I pray thee." You can read about that in the book of Job. Now, I don't got to get 1,000 precepts. Like when David said, when he went up to the mount with his head covered, and he said, "I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel to naught." When he was going into it, David wasn't actually praying with his head covered. He was saying, "I pray thee, Lord." So it's ancient terminology. It says, "And pray for the life of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and for the life of Belshazzar his son, that their days may be upon the earth as the days of heaven." So the Lord wanted Nebuchadnezzar to rule over us. But us as a people, we don't like oppression. We want to have fun, dance, timbrel, harp, music, wine. We want to have fun, man. But the spirit of having fun and rebelling against the Lord causes your mind to be corrupt, to cleave unto your oppressors and your enemies for so-called salvation and protection. It says, now therefore, hear the word of the Lord, ye remnant of Judah. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. If ye wholly set your faces to enter into Egypt and to go to sojourn there, that's why the Lord said, rise ye and depart, but this is not your rest. Yeah, they physically tried to go into Egypt on a physical level, but what are we doing spiritually? We're spiritually cleaving to this place and running to it. We're running to everything to protect us and guide us and lead us. And we're fleeing from troublous times that are coming upon the earth. It says, then it shall come to pass that the sword which ye feared shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt. So it's two reasons why the Lord destroyed ancient Egypt, because we cleaved into it for protection, and Pharaoh's hand was very mighty, and by his own might and strength, with his understanding, he destroyed all of the nations to rule it. So the Lord had to rise up Nebuchadnezzar, not only to take the children of Israel, which was prophecy, back into captivity to show him his strength, but also take down the most mightiest nation. And famine, whereof ye are afraid, shall follow close after you in Egypt, and there you shall die. So the Lord said, if you don't flee out of this place, then you're going to die in Egypt. And the Lord said, if we don't come out of this place mentally, spiritually, you understand, emotionally, you're going to die. Because a lot of people got their emotions tied into Egypt. Well, my son, he's not in the truth, and I don't know what to do. My parents, they're not in the truth. My dog, my cat. Emotions are going to get you destroyed, man. Hey, spiritually, they think that America is set up for your hope. You know, they got Baptist church, Pentecostal, Mormons. Hey, man, you got to get the hell out of this place while you still can. Because if you don't, you're going to die here, man. It says, so shall it be with all the men that set their faces to go into Egypt to sojourn there. They shall die by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence, and none of them shall remain or escape from the evil that I will bring upon them. Now, that evil is twofold. That's World War III, nuclear warfare, destruction, famine, swords, wild beasts, and the sword of Hamashiach Malak Yahushua in his mouth. And you understand that's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. But let's go back to the book, right? Of Jeremiah chapter 46. I'm going to start at verse 9. It says this, come up, ye horses. Now, horses is an ancient way of traveling and war. You had many horses, right? Now, horses, when you go to the book of First Esdras, I won't pull too many precepts, but it'll be the spirit, right? Let's go to First Esdras, the first chapter. Now, when you read First Esdras, the first chapter, it goes into the same account, right, of Josiah that we just read in Second Chronicles 35 and the book of Second Kings chapter 23. Now, we're not going to read the same thing over. Nevertheless, I wanted to get one quick point out of it. It says, yeah, I'm going to start at verse, this whole thing's crazy, 30. It says, then said the king unto his servants, carry me away out of the battle, for I am very weak. So when Josiah was sitting up there from the archers getting shot, immediately his servants took him out of the battle and gat he upon his second chariot. So that was a way of transportation. It wasn't just a sword that you would fight. You would have women that used to go in chariots. You read about that in the law. Like a woman was so delicate, she wouldn't put her feet upon the ground because they rode in chariots. And what fueled the chariots? The horses. So you would have horsemen and you would have big chariots. And certain men, like when you read Maccabees, they went on top of elephants. So that beast would travel a king, a prince, you understand, things like that. And it would be like a ambulance too. You know, when people would get slain in battle, they would take somebody on a chariot and they would get them back so they could, you know, like an ambulance would. It says, and being brought back to Jerusalem, like if this was the ancient terminology of an ambulance, died and was buried in his father's sepulchre. So you have chariots, horsemen, but horsemen also represent tanks. You can read about that in Zechariah, the 12th chapter. Let me get that real fast. This is Zechariah, right? Salaki. Get this quick precept. Chapter 12. We're going to jump straight to it. It's the book of Zechariah, chapter 12, in verse. I don't want to read this whole thing. Yeah, I don't want to get too much. I mean, you could also read Zechariah, the 10th chapter. It's all saying the same thing. Let me get straight to the 10th chapter, maybe a little faster. All right, this is Zechariah chapter 10 and verse. I'm going to start at 5. And they shall be as mighty men which tread down their enemies in the mire of the streets in the battle. And they shall fight because the Lord is with them, and the riders on horses shall be confounded. Now, if you're going to tread down your enemies, and this is a prophecy in the last days of the mighty men of Israel rising up, and all of the riders on horses were going to be confounded, those horses will have to be tanks. And them being confounded in the midst of the streets will have to be us rising up, man, and destroying them through the hand of our Lord Yahweh Shah. So riders and horses represent strength, army, can represent chariots. It will have to be the proper context. But nevertheless, going back to Jeremiah, it says, "Come up, ye horses," meaning tanks on one fold level, but on the main fold level, the battle of Carchemish. "Rage ye chariots, let the mighty men come forth, the Ethiopians and Libyans that handle the shield, and the Lydians that handle the bent bow." Now, the ancient Ethiopians, Libyans, and the Lydians had a confederacy together. But how do we know that? Let's go to the book of Ezekiel, the 30th chapter. And confederacies is nothing new, man. America wasn't the only place to say, you know what, I want to be cool with India. I want to be cool with the United Kingdom. I want to be cool with this and that. And no, this was nothing from old, man. They had leagues in the ancient world. Now, when you go to the book of Ezekiel, let me get this quick precept. Ezekiel, right, chapter 30. It's the book of Ezekiel, chapter 30 and verse 2. It says, "Son of man, prophesied and say, thus saith the Lord God, how ye woe worthy, Salakia, worth the day, for the day is near." You could tell by when the Lord said the day is near, because the Lord always says at that time, or in this day, or for the day. We know on a spiritual level that day is talking about World War III, man. It's talking about destruction. It says, even that day of the Lord is near, a cloudy day. That's saying the same thing as Zechariah. You understand the first chapter, verse 1 and verse 14. "It shall be a time of the heathen, and the sword shall come upon Egypt, and a great plain shall be in Ethiopia." Now, the Lord is speaking in such a way where you could tell this is prophecy, because he tells you, "Son of man, prophesied and say." He's not just speaking to Ezekiel on one fold level. He's speaking to the men right now that are on the highways and byways, shaking their hand to prophesy against Egypt all over again. It says, "And the sword shall come up upon Egypt, and a great pain shall be in Ethiopia, when the slain shall fall in Egypt, and they shall take away their multitude, and her foundations shall be broken down." What does it mean, her foundations? That's the same thing Yahweh Shah was prophesied in Mark, the 13th chapter, that there shall not be one stone standing here that shall not be thrown down. The Lord even prophesied it about the destruction of Egypt, man. Let me get that in the book of Mark. It's the book of Mark, chapter 13. It's the book of Mark, chapter 13, and verse number 2. It says, I'm going to start at 1. "And as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples said unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here? And Yahushua answered and said unto him, Seest thou these great buildings? Now, on one fold, this is talking about the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD that was prophesied to come in. But on another fold, it's talking about the destruction of the world. It says, There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Straight up. It says, let me go back to Ezekiel. It says, Ethiopia and Libya and Lydia and all the mingled people, and chirp, and the men of the land that is in league shall fall with them by the sword. So you have certain men that are in league. Who's in league with America, man? I mean, we could look it up for brothers that may not know. I mean, you had leagues in the time of Joshua. They was trying to make leagues in the time of Maccabees, the Romans. I mean, they had leagues in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. So, I mean, there were many leagues made throughout the scriptures. And you can even read about breaking a league in let me get this quick precept. So Israel, this wasn't nothing new. Let me get this quick precept, and I'm gonna come back to this in Second Chronicles 16. Let's go to Second Chronicles chapter 16. Second Chronicles chapter 16 and verse number 3. It says, "There is a league between me and thee, as there was between my father and thy father. Behold, I have sent thee silver and gold. Go break thy league with Bashan, king of Israel, that he may depart from me." Now, I'm not going to read all the way down, but you have certain leagues that were made. Men would give silver, gold, weapons. Like in the ancient world with Judas Maccabees, hey, look, let's make a league, and whenever I want to fight, you fight, and vice versa. Right, going back to it, to America's allies and enemies. So-called allies, right? Norway, Israel, Ireland, Italy, France, UK, Australia, Canada. Now, within these allies, they branch off with multiple leagues, which may be economical, which may be surveillance, and which may be military. That may chop down to the different alliances. Now, enemies. Now, this is way more than this. This is not. This is not even half. But nevertheless, North Korea, Iran, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Russia, Libya, right, Somalia, Pakistan, and Palestine, right? But I have a in-depth breakdown. Most are willing I could do that soon on in-depthly all of the different confederacies, economic, right, military, and so forth. So it says when you go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 46, and verse number 10, it says, Salaki. Let me go back to Ezekiel chapter 30 and verse number 5. I want to finish off a little bit. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, they also that uphold Egypt shall fall, and the pride of her power." So Egypt had pride. "Shall come down from the tower of Sinear, shall they fall in it by the sword, saith the Lord." It says, "And they shall be desolate in the midst of the countries." Now that's too spiritual. It said they shall be desolate in the midst of the countries. But didn't it say the same thing in the book of Revelation, the 18th chapter? So we know that the battle of Carchemish is spiritual, because that's when he got taken down and Egypt got thrown down in the ancient world. We know that there was one overthrow in ancient Egypt, you understand, during the time of Moses, in the time of Hamashiach, Omalak Yahushua, in the hand of the angels and the Most High, overthrowing them, right? But let me get this quick precept. Salaki. In Revelation chapter 18. And it says the same thing in 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter. For those that bewail them. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 18 and verse 10. "Stand afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And thy merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more." It's saying the same exact thing. "And they shall be desolate in the midst of many countries," like in the midst of the countries. So all of the countries are going to see Babylon destroyed, man. They're going to see Egypt destroyed, that are desolate, and her cities shall be in the midst of the cities that are waste. And they shall know that I am the Lord when I have set a fire in Egypt, and when all her helpers shall be destroyed. What is that fire in Egypt? That's nuclear warfare. That's the fire that's going to be set in Egypt. And all her helpers, meaning her Confederates. We just read some of the allies and Confederates, man. And they're all going to be confounded. Now, from here, I'm going to go back to this whole thing to me. Ezekiel 30 kind of mean, but I'm going to rush right here. I'm going to go back to Jeremiah chapter 46 in verse number 10. It says, "For this is the day of the Lord God of hosts, a day of vengeance, that he may avenge him of his adversaries, that the sword shall devour, and it shall be steadied and made drunk with their blood. For the Lord of hosts have a sacrifice in the north country." Now the Lord says he has a sacrifice in the north country by the river Euphrates. What also is by the river Euphrates? Let's go to the book of Revelation, the 19th chapter. That great sacrifice from old is that same sacrifice that the Most High is going to make in the last days. Right? It's the book. Matter of fact, before I get that, let's prove that. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1 and verse 9. And you have to believe in regeneration, man. If you don't believe in regeneration, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you could just look at when grass is chopped down, it grows in the same spot. I mean, just from everything as it is, the sun, the moon, everything is being in a cycle over and over, and it stands in its lot. You can't change a lot. Grass can be chopped and grow up a flower. It will always be grass. That seed will always be an apple seed. These things are remaining in their lot and standing in the cause of the Most High, man. It says, "The thing that I have been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done." So the Lord said, if something has been done, it has to be done all over again. And there is no new thing under the sun. So there's no new thing in this thing. So that great sacrifice in the North Country is that same North Country in North America we living in now. That same destruction the Lord said he has in Idumea. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 19, right? In verse, I mean, this whole thing is crazy. But I'm going to start at 13. Well, I'm going to start at 14. "And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed, right, in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth them in the winepress and the fierceness and the wrath of the Almighty. And he have on his vesture and on his thigh a name written." Now, when it says his thigh, that's spiritual, because your thigh, you will make a promise or you will swear upon your thigh. And upon your thigh is where your sword will lie. So it says, and he has a on Salakia, and he has on his vesture and on his thigh a name, Salakia, a name written. So his thigh will where the sword would be, and it's an ancient way that you would make a swear, a vow. You can read about that in Genesis chapter 24 and 1 all the way down. "King of kings and Lord of lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying, All the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses." So who is really the great sacrifice for? It's really on a deeper level for the elite, man. It's for the kings, the princes, the nobles, the mighty men, the same that were in this battle that got taken down, which were the elite of Egypt. Because that woman rocking her baby and all hell was breaking loose and fire was being raged and Nebuchadnezzar came in and slashed her, she's not mentioned. Only the elite are mentioned, man. It says, "And of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great." So everybody's going to get destroyed. It says, "And I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army." Where is all of this going to take place? We can read about it when we go to the book of Revelations, the 16th chapter, and Revelations, the 19th chapter. When the kings of the east have to travel through the great river of Euphrates to be destroyed in the midst where the Lord is going to have in the 19th chapter this great sacrifice. So when you go to these scriptures in Jeremiah, in Ezekiel, in Isaiah, and understand the Babylonian time, ancient empires, the wars, Nebuchadnezzar, all of these things, they're double to that which is. Now I want to get this quick precept in the book of Revelation. Probably get about two more and close out. Gotta go to camp, gotta go to bring the word out. Right? Let's go to the book of Revelation. All right, real fast. Chapter 9. Right? It's the book of Revelation, chapter 9 and verse 14. Saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loose, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year to slay the third part of men. So you have angels bound in the great river Euphrates. The great river Euphrates is like a war zone. It's not just a river that's drying up and a tourist attraction and an old ancient place where people used to go fishing, man. No, this place has a spirit behind it. Just like you go to a graveyard. Nobody wants to go to a graveyard for a vacation, huh? Or just to wander around. It's spirits there. It's spirits in the river Euphrates, man. Whether it's drying it up for prophecy, whether understanding angels are bound there for destruction, understanding ancient wars when ancient bones that are underneath the soil that lie there in blood, that place is a place of destruction. It says, and the fourth angel were loose, which were prepared. Key word, they're prepared. Like you prepare for work, you lay out your food, you get your water, you get your so-called suit and tie or your boots or whatever you do, your uniform, just for an hour and for a day and a month and a year, meaning a complete amount from the year to the month to the day to the exact hour they were prepared for this moment to slay the third part of men. Going back, right, to Jeremiah chapter 46 and verse 11, go up upon Gilead and take balm, O virgin daughter of Egypt. What's the virgin daughter of Egypt? There's no such thing. It's America. Just like you got the virgin daughter of Babylon. Before America came into play, what was that? It had to be foretelling or foreshadowing another empire. So when you read from verse 11 all the way down, just like in Revelations 13 and 11 all the way down, it jumps in the spirit talking about America. It says, in vain shalt thou use many medicines, for thou shalt not be cured. And this is the ancient place of pharmaceuticals, right? You have so many clinics and different places where sports medicine and pharmaceuticals and different companies. This place is a place of sorcery. And medicine goes back to sorcery. Well, pharmacist goes back to sorcery, right? It says, the nations have heard of thy shame, and they have cried, filled the land. Both the mighty men that have slumbered, Slakia, have stumbled against the mighty, and they are fallen both together. Now I'm gonna rest right here, right? Most High willing, I could come back and do a part two, right? On the ancient battle of Carchemish war. Most High willing, I could cover the Syrian wars. I could cover, ancient wars, just dating back, to the time these different Achaemenic empires. And most High willing, I could uncover more history because that's very important. When you're going inside of these things, you most definitely want to uncover as much as you can with these dynasties. The conquest of Egypt, the conquest of Lydia, right? The Persian revolt, amongst other wars that are in the scriptures, which are twofold through the spirit. But let me bring out this closing precept. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 3 and verse 2. It says, be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before God. Remember, therefore, how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast, and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come at thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. So if you're not watching, remaining diligent, being steadfast, on fire for the Most High, in the name of his son Yahushua, your candlestick is going to be blown out with all ignorance, pride, arrogancy, and all manner of lewdness, man, because you don't hold yourself diligent in the faith. Men are dropping like flies in the truth, man. You look at people that used to be in the truth, how mighty they used to be, or how they used to have a mind to want to serve, a mind to want to read, how the Lord is sifting that out slowly. So you have to watch, examine, and pray in the last days that you're counted worthy to eat. You understand that is honey. Come to the table and eat the bread. Be able to drink the waters. Be able to be filled. But with that, I'm going to close out, giving all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai. Lord willing, this was edifying. Shalom.